Ladies and gentlemen, the sooner you accept that nobody is waking up in the morning thinking about your pain, your heartbreak, your financial struggles, or the unfair things that happen to you, sooner you'll step into a place of real freedom. People are not ignoring you to be cruel. They're simply focused on their own lives, their own battles, their own private storms. You might feel like the weight you're carrying should be visible to everyone, that they should sense it in the way you speak or the way you move, but the truth is, they're carrying weights of their own. We live in a world where every person you meet is juggling unseen struggles, and while you're waiting for someone to stop and understand yours, they're doing the exact same thing. When you grasp this reality, something clicks inside you. It's no longer about getting the world to care, it's about taking full ownership of what happens next. This understanding can sting at first. We grow up thinking that people will notice our hurt, that they will step in when we're drowning, that somehow the universe will align to rescue us when things get hard. But in reality, the rescue doesn't come from outside, it comes from within. The sooner you stop expecting external validation, the quicker you stop living like a prisoner to disappointment. You begin to see the truth. Most of the people you expect support from have their own priorities, their own deadlines, their own sleepless nights. Your problems will not be their priority, and that's not an insult. It's human nature. When you let go of the need for people to care, you start building from a place of self-reliance. You stop playing the waiting game where you silently hope someone will notice your pain, and instead take steps that don't depend on anyone else's awareness. Think about it. How much time have you wasted hoping that someone would ask, "Are you okay?" How many days have you spent secretly resenting people for not showing up in ways they didn't even know you needed? All of that energy could have been invested in your own growth, in sharpening your skills, in rebuilding your confidence, in strengthening your mind so you could handle life without leaning on expectation that others will save you. The harsh truth is, people are too absorbed in their own problems to spend consistent energy worrying about yours. And this truth, instead of breaking you, can set you free because it removes the invisible chain of dependency. If nobody is going to save you, then the power to change your life has always been yours. You no longer waste mental bandwidth wondering why someone hasn't called, why they haven't shown up, why they didn't check in. That space in your mind becomes available for something far more powerful: strategy, resilience, and execution. This mindset doesn't mean you become cold or uncaring. In fact, it does the opposite. It makes you more compassionate, because once you realize everyone is carrying something, you stop judging them for not noticing your burdens. You stop blaming them for not stepping in. You understand that, just like you, they're doing their best to keep their own world from falling apart. That awareness creates empathy, but it also builds a shield. It stops you from being emotionally dependent on how much attention others give you. You are no longer crushed when people overlook your struggles, because you've accepted that they aren't supposed to carry your load. When you finally drop the fantasy that the world owes you care, attention, or understanding, you begin to live on a higher frequency. You stop waiting for permission to heal, to start over, to change direction. You realize you can do it now, today, without anyone's applause or encouragement. You learn to clap for yourself when you win, to speak life into yourself when you're tired, to be your own motivator when nobody else is watching. This is the shift that turns ordinary people into unstoppable forces. The decision to keep moving, even in silence, even in solitude, even when it feels like no one notices the effort you're putting in. The people who rise the fastest and climb the highest are not necessarily the ones with the most support. They are the ones who learned early that the world will not pause for their pain. They built discipline, work ethic, and self-belief without waiting for someone to push them forward. They understood that the moment you stop expecting care from others, you start expecting more from yourself. That expectation becomes the seed for personal transformation, and here's the irony: when you stop craving the world's attention, That's often when the world starts paying attention. People begin to notice results, not complaints. They respect the quiet strength of someone who handled their battles without needing to broadcast them. They are drawn to the energy of self-sufficiency because it is rare in a culture addicted to external validation. But by then, you won't need their validation. You'll already be moving forward, fueled by your own willpower, your own drive, and your own unshakable understanding that no one is coming to save you. And that's the greatest gift you could have ever been given. Pain has a strange way of making you believe it's a prison. When you're stuck in the middle of it, whether it's heartbreak, betrayal, financial struggle, loss, or even the quiet, dull ache of feeling lost, you start to think this is how life will always be. The mind begins weaving stories that you are somehow trapped, that this is your new reality, that the only thing left to do is endure it. But here's the truth. Pain was never meant to be a cage. It was meant to be fuel. It's a signal that something within you is still alive, that there's a part of you refusing to settle for what is, because it knows what could be. Every powerful transformation in history has been born from discomfort. People don't change when they're comfortable. They change when they have to. And pain is the great teacher that forces you to move, to think differently, to rise from the ashes of your old self. When you're hurting, you're standing at a crossroads. One path leads to surrender, where you let the weight of your emotions suffocate your potential. The other path leads to using that same weight as resistance training for your soul, making you stronger, sharper, and more resilient than you've ever been. Think about a fire. It can burn you to ash or it can forge steel. The difference is how you channel it. Pain is the same way. If you sit in it, it consumes you. If you channel it, it transforms you. The people who rise from failure, who rebuild after loss, who come back stronger than before, are the ones who made a decision. This won't break me. This will build me. They stopped looking at pain as punishment and started seeing it as an opportunity to grow beyond the version of themselves that tolerated less than they deserved. When you shift your perspective in this way, pain becomes a teacher, not a tormentor. It points out the areas of your life that need to change. A toxic relationship teaches you self-worth. Financial struggles teach you resourcefulness. Betrayal teaches you discernment. Loneliness teaches you how to stand on your own 2 feet. Every wound, when processed correctly, leaves behind wisdom that you couldn't have learned any other way. The problem is that most people never make it to the wisdom stage. They get stuck in the wound stage, replaying the hurt over and over, refusing to let it evolve into something useful. And here's where destiny comes into play. Your destiny isn't fixed. It's shaped daily by the way you respond to your circumstances. Pain is one of the most powerful tools you have to alter that trajectory, because it demands a response. You can choose a response that keeps you in the same place, reinforcing the narrative that you're powerless, or you can choose a response that rewrites the story entirely. When you respond with strength, with action, with purpose, you are literally reshaping your future in that moment. The mistake many people make is thinking that the goal is to eliminate pain completely. That's impossible. Pain is part of life. It will visit you again and again. The real goal is to become someone who knows how to use it instead of being used by it. That's when you stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstance and start seeing yourself as the architect of your life. Every setback becomes a building block. Every hardship becomes a brick in the foundation of who you are becoming. But this shift requires brutal honesty with yourself. You have to look at your pain and ask, what is this trying to teach me? How can I use this to fuel where I'm going? That's not easy, because the ego wants to blame, to complain, to point fingers at life or other people. It wants to justify staying in the same place because this isn't fair, but destiny doesn't reward fairness, it rewards action. The people who make it to the top aren't always the ones who had the easiest paths. They're the ones who turned every cut, every scar, every heartbreak into a reason to push harder. It's about turning emotion into motion. If you're angry, use that energy to outwork everyone. If you're heartbroken, use it to rebuild yourself into someone who will never be in that position again. If you feel lost, use the emptiness as space to create a new vision. This isn't about suppressing your feelings, it's about refusing to let them dictate your future in a negative way. Pain will try to convince you to stop, to rest in the misery because it's familiar, but you have to remember that comfort zones are built from the same bricks as cages. When you decide to use your pain as fuel, you tap into a level of motivation that people who have never suffered will never understand. You stop needing perfect conditions because you've learned how to perform in the storm. You stop waiting for life to hand you peace before you make progress because you've learned how to build progress out of chaos. You realize that the same fire that could have burned you down has actually forged you into something unbreakable. One of the most exhausting and self-defeating habits a person can have is spending energy on things they cannot control. It's like trying to push back the tide with your hands. You can fight all day, but the waves will still come. Life will always hand you situations that are unfair, unpredictable, and uncomfortable. People will misunderstand you, judge you, betray you, or leave you without explanation. Circumstances will change without warning. The past will remain exactly as it is, no matter how many sleepless nights you spend replaying it. The more you focus on these unchangeable elements, the more powerless you feel. But the moment you shift your focus to what you can control, your entire sense of power begins to return. Control is not about manipulating every aspect of life. It's about mastering yourself in any situation. You cannot control how someone speaks to you, but you can control how you respond. You cannot control the economy, but you can control your skills, your work ethic, and your adaptability. You cannot control the past, but you can control the meaning you attach to it and the lessons you take from it. Every time you redirect your energy toward things you can actually influence, you reclaim power from the chaos around you. The danger in obsessing over the uncontrollable is that it creates a victim mindset. When you're always focused on external forces, you start to believe they dictate everything about your life. You feel like you're at the mercy of luck, timing, or other people's decisions. This way of thinking leaves you waiting for someone to change, waiting for the right opportunity, waiting for the perfect conditions. But waiting is a slow death for your dreams. The truth is, life rewards the people who take action with what they have, where they are, without waiting for anyone or anything to change first. Think about the countless hours people waste complaining about politics, about the weather, about what someone else did or didn't do. Those hours could have been invested in learning a new skill, building a business, improving health, deepening relationships, or creating opportunities. Complaining is the illusion of action. It feels like you're doing something, but you're really just standing still, pouring your energy into a black hole that gives you nothing back. The people who succeed at the highest levels have mastered the discipline of ruthless focus. They have trained themselves to quickly identify what they cannot change, let it go, and pour all their effort into what they can. This mindset requires mental discipline because letting go doesn't come naturally. The human mind loves to cling to perceived injustices and unanswered questions. It wants closure, fairness, and control over outcomes. But the reality is, closure is often a luxury you won't get, fairness is subjective, and outcomes are influenced by countless factors outside your reach. Fighting this reality is like fighting gravity. It will exhaust you and keep you grounded. Accepting it is like learning to use gravity to your advantage. You stop fighting the weight, and you start working with it to build strength. Focusing on what you can control also makes you more effective in daily life. Instead of being reactive, constantly responding to external triggers, you become proactive, setting the tone and direction for your day. You wake up thinking, what can I do right now to improve my situation? And then you do it. This doesn't mean you ignore the bigger picture. It means you refuse to be paralyzed by it. You acknowledge the storm, but you focus on steering your ship. You can't control the wind, but you can adjust your sails. And here's the powerful part. When you consistently focus on controllable actions, the uncontrollable often starts to shift in your favor. People notice your discipline, your resilience, and your results. Opportunities tend to flow toward those who are prepared and in motion. Problems that once seemed overwhelming start to shrink, not because the world changed, but because you changed your approach to it. It's also worth noting that controlling what you can often starts with your internal world, your thoughts, your emotions, your habits. These are the levers you have direct access to. The way you talk to yourself in moments of stress determines whether you spiral downward or rise above. The routines you build shape your capacity to handle pressure. The environment you create for yourself influences your energy and focus. Every small decision in these areas compounds over time, leading to massive differences in your outcomes. The moment you truly commit to this mindset, you stop wasting time on people who don't want to change, on situations that can't be altered, and on past events that can't be rewritten. You stop leaking energy into the void and start investing it into actions that create real movement. This is where progress happens quietly, consistently in the background, while everyone else is stuck venting and blaming. You start to realize that your life isn't shaped by the things you can't control, but by what you choose to do with the things you can. Emotions are powerful, but they are also fleeting. One moment you can feel unstoppable, ready to take on the world, and the next you can feel defeated, convinced nothing will work out. If you allow these shifting emotional states to be the driving force behind your decisions, your life will always feel unstable. The truth is, emotions are like weather, constantly changing, sometimes sunny, sometimes stormy. But your decisions should be like architecture, built with stability in mind, designed to last. You cannot build a lasting future on a foundation that changes every time the wind blows. The challenge is that most people live reactively. They wake up and decide their attitude for the day based on how they feel in the first few minutes. If they're tired, they take it easy. If they're motivated, they go all in. If they're discouraged, they put things off. This emotional decision-making creates a cycle where progress is inconsistent, because feelings are inconsistent. The people who accomplish extraordinary things aren't the ones who always feel motivated. They're the ones who do what needs to be done, whether they feel like it or not. When you shift from emotion-based choices to decision-based actions, you start building momentum that isn't easily broken. You stop asking, "Do I feel like it?" and start asking, "Does this decision align with the life I'm building?" That question changes everything. It forces you to act from vision rather than from mood. It keeps you moving forward even on the days you feel tired, uninspired, or doubtful. Those days are inevitable, but they don't have to derail you. Every major achievement you can think of came from someone making disciplined decisions repeatedly over time, not from someone riding an endless wave of inspiration. Athletes train on the days they don't want to. Entrepreneurs make calls and close deals even after hearing 100 rejections. Artists create when they feel blocked. They understand that their destiny isn't being written by how they feel in any single moment, but by the sum of the choices they make over months and years. When you're guided by emotions, you're at the mercy of circumstances. A bad conversation can ruin your productivity. A setback can make you quit. A single disappointment can convince you to stop trying. But when you're guided by decisions, you create stability regardless of circumstances. The weather outside can be stormy, but the blueprint of your day remains the same. You've already decided what needs to be done, and you follow through because you've committed to the outcome, not to the comfort of the moment. This shift also builds trust in yourself. When you keep promises to yourself even when it's hard, you begin to believe in your own word. That self-trust is the foundation for confidence. Most people think confidence comes from positive emotions, but real confidence comes from evidence. Evidence that you will do what you said you would do even when it's uncomfortable. Every time you follow through on a decision instead of giving in to a feeling, you're building proof that you can rely on yourself. Another reason emotions can be dangerous decision makers is that they often exaggerate reality. Fear tells you the risk is greater than it is. Anger convinces you to act before thinking. Excitement makes you overcommit. Sadness makes you underestimate your strength. If you let these temporary states dictate long-term choices, you create a future based on distorted perceptions rather than grounded truth. By making decisions from a place of clarity rather than emotional impulse, you protect yourself from regret and ensure that your actions are in service of your bigger vision. That's not to say emotions are useless. They can be powerful guides and motivators, but they should be advisors, not rulers. You can listen to them, learn from them, even use them as fuel. But you must weigh them against your core values, your long-term goals, and your principles before acting. If you're always chasing a feeling, you'll spend your life starting and stopping, always reacting, never building. But if you chase the life you've decided you want, regardless of how you feel in the moment, you will find yourself on a steady path toward that vision. The discipline to act on decisions instead of emotions is like a muscle. It grows stronger the more you use it. At first it will feel unnatural. You'll want to give in to the mood of the day. But over time, this discipline becomes automatic. You stop relying on bursts of motivation because you've built systems and habits that keep you moving no matter what's happening internally or externally. This is how you gain control over your destiny. You make it a product of intentional choices, not fluctuating states of mind. When you finally live this way, you realize how much time you used to waste waiting to feel ready or in the mood before taking action. You see how many opportunities you missed because you let temporary discomfort dictate your moves. And you begin to understand that while emotions can be valuable signals, they are unreliable leaders. Decisions, once made with clarity and purpose, can carry you through any emotional storm, keeping you aligned with the future you've chosen to create.